Let's go! Not over.
Hey, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Indie Comics Relay. I'm your host, Keith Gleason, creator of the Mighty Mascots and promoter for the Plastic City Comic Con. With me, as always, Johnny C., creator of Sartana, Surrounded by Death, and The Pond. And who's that for, Johnny?
My good cousin, Roger Morocco. We'll be traveling to Chicago and C2E2 with this very weekend.
Very cool. And our third co-host, Harry G., graphic artist extraordinaire. What's going on, fellas?
Hey, how's it going? Happy Earth Day.
Yeah.
Did you guys plant any trees today or pick up any trash? Or
no, I didn't do a damn
right.
No, unfortunately I didn't. Normally I would, and having grown up in the 80s, I should have. And here's why. McDonald's back in the day used to actually sell like kids meals that had like little trees, little evergreen trees that you were supposed to plant. Yeah, remember that?
Yeah.
So like the generation having grown up with that and having grown up with Woodsy the Owl,
right?
You'd think we'd be more conscientious about Earth Day, but we're not.
Yeah, like Amy said here, I recycled some soda cans today.
Oh, that's good.
We took a walk outside. That was nice.
My old man recycled some cans, so I think he did my part for me. So
nice.
I was going to do the opposite today. My people at work today took turns going outside and taking shifts and picking up trash all over the place. And then the third shift, it looked pretty clean outside our building, and I'm like, if you guys want, I'll go outside and have a few snacks and throw the wrappers on the ground. You guys can go pick them up if you want. I'll do my part if you guys want to pick up more trash.
You're like the Noid for Earth Day.
Yeah, great reference. That's awesome.
Oh my god,
I'm excited about tonight's show. But before, I just wanted to do a quick little just a little self promotion here for Plastic City Comic Con. I just added some awesome guests today.
Oh,
cool. Our guest list is growing big.
Dan Parent is amazing.
Oh yeah.
Love him.
So I guess I could talk about this a little bit. So Johnny, remember in private, I was talking about, we're going to have an exclusive Archie cover.
Yeah.
For the show. So it's happening. What's funny? Mm-hmm. It's not just one. We're gonna have two exclusives, I believe. Both Archie. One of them is gonna be by Dan Parent, who's actually gonna come up for the show as well.
Nice.
And it's being I'm doing it in a collaboration with a guy called Mellow Fellow Trading Company.
Okay.
Who is a friend. I met him through the shop I work at and stuff. And he actually works with a ton of artists. The other two artists have done my show, and you might know them. Scott McFarlane and Ken Berube. They go under Angry Dad Comics.
Oh yeah, they've come on the show before, haven't they?
No, but they are going to come. They're going to.
Okay, I think that's maybe where that rings a bell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I told Scott we got to get him on the show. It's been too long. Yeah. So, but Mellow Fellow is commissioned to cover with them, and with Dan Parent. So we're gonna have 2 exclusive covers at Plastic City,
Cool.
and it's gonna be first an Archie comic. We just don't know which one yet for both of them.
That's so cool. I'm so jelly.
I know. I'll have to save you one so you can have it.
Please do. Save me a set.
I'm really happy. I'm really excited about Jim Salicrup too from the 80s. He wrote like the Transformers comic for a while, the Marvel one.
And that's a great series. That was, because you have to think back to the 80s when we were kids. We didn't unless you had a VCR, which you have to be lucky to, you only watched cartoons when they aired.
Oh,
so
yeah.
The next best thing was getting comics.
Yep.
Of like Transformers,
Transformers was the second comic I ever bought in my life. My first was a Spider-Man comic. Yeah, so like those movie and cartoon tie-ins totally worked on me as a kid, And
as designed.
Yep. And of course we got Joe, Keith Champagne, Rich Maurizio, my buddy Matt. Mock Bell is a new one for us. He's a musician.
Cool.
Worked with Joe Perry and a few others. Jeff Klein, of course. Tim Jones, Kelly Droids, and then just a whole list of vendors, artists, writers, crafters. It's just going to be cool, man.
Nice.
I just wanted to pop in here and start promoting that a little bit,
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm excited, So it's getting, as it gets closer, I get more into it, So
yeah, it's exciting.
A burden,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to do this, but then as it gets closer, I start getting more excited. Who I almost had for the show too? I hadn't even thought of her as a guest because you don't think this person is a comic creator, but like I almost had Bill Finger's granddaughter for the show. Finger. I guess she does shows.
That would be cool.
Yeah, you know what thwarted me though was San Diego Comic-Con, because she's going to be at San Diego Comic-Con, or else I probably could have got her to come to the show.
The same thing that thwarted me from Plastic City time and time again. Damn it!
Yeah, I know.
Not to shirk my friends in San Diego, I love very much.
Yeah, I know, and I understand. We're going to lose guests because of that, but. I told her next year if I move the show back into like August again, like late August, we might be able to get her up here. I think she'd be a cool little guest just to talk.
That would be an awesome guest, even just for stories like that she might have about her dad. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Seriously, like such a legend, legendary character. So
I know that documentary too. If you haven't seen it,
it's fantastic.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, and also. Tonight's guest I'm kind of excited for because I don't know if either of you guys watched Inspired Ink, the Comix Wellspring show. Did you guys
I saw one episode of it.
I have not.
Oh, okay. You'll have to check some out, Johnny, because go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and I'm generally, and I should actually be better about this, but I'm generally pretty media blind to like other podcast shows.
Gotcha.
Unless I'm on them, you know what I mean? So I really should do like a little bit better about like investigating people who have shows and seeing this. And honestly, I've been so busy, I didn't get a chance to look into it because I know you sent me the show prep. And because I love Comix Wellspring so much, I really should be watching it.
Well, let me just say he's a great host. Like I discovered it actually from Comix Wellspring's newsletters that they send out. Because as a creator, you should be on those for whenever they have a deal or or find out about new books in their indie store. But yeah, they sent out a mailing and they had it on there, so I bookmarked it. Because when I do my lettering during the day, like I listen to a lot of shows like that, and I've listened to a few, and he's a good interview, and he's also a comic creator himself.
Awesome,
and part of the Comix Wellspring team now. So. But yeah, tonight's guest is Brandon Bloxdorf, and without further ado, let's bring him in. And welcome, Brandon Bloxdorf. Is that how you say it, Brandon Bloxdorf?
Yes, awesome. Like a block and blocks and a dwarf. Yeah.
Okay.
Put together.
I like that name though. It sounds very like kind of superhero-ish, And
or wrestler, like what's his name, Mr. Wonderful, Paul Orndorff.
Yeah, like a wrestling name or something.
Yeah, I like that.
Dude, supposedly we used to have the Von in front of Bloxdorf, and I got to figure out how to get that back into my last name because Von Bloxdorf would be too epic
dude,
as like a
that's
writer.
epic.
That's
Yeah,
that's
that just
that's German,
sounds,
right?
like, awesome.
Yes,
German,
yeah,
German.
it is.
Deutsch.
Oh,
Yep.
awesome.
That's so cool. And so Brandon, I was just kind of building you up. I don't know if you heard us backstage there.
Thank you.
But yeah, no, I'm a big fan of the show and of you yourself as well. And the first question we kind of ask our guests all the time is we love to learn origins of people. And like, like we love to find out like what comic, TV show, or movie kind of you saw that blew your mind and like put you on this path to wanting to become like a comic creator. Is there something you can point to in your past that is that one thing that made that click in your brain and you're like, I want to do this? Is there something you can point to?
I guess there's a couple points in my life because the comics kind of dipped in and out of my life. I was introduced really early because of my dad to comics and rock and roll at the same time.
Oh,
and
nice.
so like it was the first comic he ever like handed me, and I was just too perplexed to understand, completely understandably so too, was Crisis on Infinite Earths number
Oh,
one.
jeez.
And so and he was just like, this is just a cool thing I had if you want to check it out. And I was like, what? This is insane. I just couldn't understand it. Like I had no idea.
It was
what
too
was
dense.
happening.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about because I tried to read it when I was young and I couldn't grasp it either.
That's like trying to pick up Alan Moore, right?
Yeah.
Like
right away, like it's just a lot. But I mean, I've always been like a fan of like superhero stuff as a kid, but like I really leaned heavily into music. But like I also grew up on like Kiss and Motley Crue and stuff like
Oh,
that.
nice.
So like that Alice Cooper was a big thing when I was a kid. So that theatrical aspect had always been part of my life. But I was into music forever and ever, and then I hit a point where I was majoring in music. I was going to school for it, and I was really close to finishing my degree. But at the time, my band was kind of like falling apart. The girl I was dating, stuff like was terrible there, and like a whole section of my life was like kind of falling apart. And I just kind of cut it off because I was like just randomly reading comics again, and I wanted to get back into them. And I was reading like Miracle Man, and I picked up Sandman at the same time.
Nice.
And like the Invisibles, those were like the three that like got my attention because I wanted something different outside the like superhero stuff when you're going searching for those things. And that's what kind of spearheaded me into like Shade the Changing Man too. When I was
just finished rereading that entire run. And
dude,
I
I'm
loved
actually
it.
on a reread of it right now.
Are you really? That's so funny. I literally just finished a month ago.
And nobody knows about that series either.
It's so good.
Off the
It gets
charts.
it gets a little lost after issue 50 for a little while, but
oh yeah.
But then it gets on track right to end the series in a good way. But like it's good though. It's really
I'm not even familiar like that. Like that's how like I guess if you know kind of one of those things.
Oh geez,
I don't know.
Johnny.
I gotta check that out.
Yeah, early Chris is it Bacalo or Baccello artwork.
Peter Milligan writing.
And Peter Milligan writing it. It's so good, and it's a redo of an old Steve Ditko character.
Yeah,
oh, cool.
And he battles madness. Like that's his power. Like he
Who doesn't really? Yeah. I love that.
and
It's great.
It gets your attention like right away because it has this like JFK storyline starting off into it, the American Scream, and it's just the most twisted first issue. And this is when Vertigo was doing those like 40-page issue ones, and so like with that and Preacher and all that type of stuff, and so it's packed with just insanity. Highly recommend.
Yeah, I do too.
Preacher was my like first step into like non-superhero comics, I think. You know what I mean? So it's like it's such a like experience when you pick up a book that's just not the super like the indie, not the traditional superhero comic kind of thing, and like it opens a door. It makes you think like, oh, there's more to this, or this is wider than what you expected. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's almost like it makes you. It almost makes you think like, oh, I just underestimated comics. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. That early Vertigo stuff. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It's like it is like nothing else in comics like it now, even that compares. But like that time, like that, whenever they were making massive hits like Sandman, Invisibles, Shade, all that stuff was happening at the same time. Alan Moore's Swamp Thing, all that stuff, you know.
But I think that even like those kind of books are happening. They're just not getting picked up by big companies to give them the right eyeballs. You know what I mean? Like when you look at it, when you look at a lot of Kickstarters and campaigns out there, I mean, that's where you're seeing it. You know, that's where you're seeing it in the modern age, you know, where we would see like, oh, okay, they would strive to be picked up by a publisher, which would then give them the visibility they needed. Now they're empowering themselves, you know, but it's also transformed the process because these awesome indie stories are on the fringes, right? They don't become intrinsically a part of the zeitgeist the way something like The Crow could, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, Karen Berger and Shelley Bond just like transformed the landscape by bringing stories that would have never been part of DC into that whole universe, you know? And that's the funnest part. I love that early Vertigo stuff. That's definitely top tier for what I love.
Me too. I'm a big fan of that era, and I was missing it, which is why I bought the entire run of Shade on eBay. Nice. And I was like, I spent 150. I was like, I gotta have this entire run. Worth it. Totally worth it. But like sitting down and rereading it again, I was like, this is so good. I've been missing this kind of comic. You know what I mean? It's really good stuff.
I did something similar with Valiant. Sorry, Harry.
Oh no,
I did something similar with Valiant books. Like I was like, I missed this era and this, you know, sect of characters. So went to eBay and I just dropped a little bit of cash and got a little collection of them, you know, just to like kind of refresh my memory on it.
Yeah. You know? What are you gonna say, Harry?
Oh no, I was gonna ask what you did in the band. Were you like did you play an instrument? I mean, I'm sure you did.
I bass was my main focus. I for some reason just like got real hooked into that, and like I started playing bass when I was like 14 years old.
Oh, cool.
And I think it's because everyone else played guitar, and I was like, I'll do this other thing that no one else is trying to do. And so like I've been
very underappreciated bass,
like, and very important too. That's the thing. It's like without bass, it's like it's flat. You know what I mean? Bass is just, it keeps that rhythm, you know.
Yeah, it's kept me so entertained, and I wish I could play more nowadays. I get so involved with my work now, but I kind of fried out there. I guess musically, that's the sad part. I fried out real hard musically, but I have an itch to keep coming back to it.
You should go back to it. It's another creative outlet, you know. You should keep it up.
It's something. It's so bizarre how like I mean we're about to start a live drawing show at CWS, and I don't mind like showing off my writings. I don't mind learning how to draw live on YouTube, any of those things. But for some reason, when it comes to my music, I get more self-conscious on like my skill set and level and mindset than anything else. I think when I was growing up playing bass, I went really into like. I was a pretty good bassist where I was learning very like complicated classical music and doing these crazy pieces. And I played a 6-string bass and I used all 6 strings and, various thumb techniques. So I kind of put myself on a pedestal, and I felt like because I'd put myself so high, not being there, it's actually like really like mentally made it hard for me to go back to it because I'm not like at that skill set, and I'm not able to jump back into it and dive into it the way I want to.
It's so personal to you.
Yeah, it really is.
It's so hard. I get that. I kind of get that too. It's like I look back at some of the mistakes I've made in comics, and all the work I've done is quite personal to me. So I feel that. I feel that when it's like, okay, dipping back into the well of something creative or starting a new title or a story or adventure, I can feel that. So I can completely connect to that in that regard.
Oh, and also, sorry.
That fear, but it's so hard with that. It's bizarre, but you're right. I think it is because it's very personal in that sense.
Are you gonna catch the Kiss tour before they
dude, I actually saw Kiss like 3 times in the last like 5 years by accident.
Nice.
Like, yeah. I lived
one song. I just know that one song.
Oh, you're not a fan, Harry?
Well, I grew up so much on that stuff, dude. When I lived in El Paso, Texas, I grew up in El Paso for most of my life. I just recently moved to the East Coast, but I caught them in Albuquerque, and I got to be close enough that when Paul Stanley did the thing where he flies across the stage, I was able to reach up and like tap his boot.
Oh wow!
And I was
nice.
Cool.
Like victory. Like
I was gonna say I got to see Kiss on their Psycho Circus tour.
Oh,
and I got to see them at the Boston Garden, and they played with Aerosmith. So as a Bostonian, it was like it couldn't be more perfect, you know.
Yeah,
I got to see Kiss, and of all the people that opened Aerosmith, you know what I mean?
Wow,
How
that's
many-
funny that Aerosmith opened for them. That's crazy.
I know, right?
Yeah.
They're both on their last tours, right? Even Aerosmith.
For the
They-
for the
would think.
80th time.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't worry, I'll catch them on the next farewell tour.
How many?
I always
how many?
loved how Kiss though mixed with comics so well too, like down to their like personas and like wasn't Gene Simmons like Wings? Wasn't that like taken right from Black Bolt?
Yes,
And-
dude,
yeah.
from Jack. Yeah. I was
Yeah,
actually
that's
just
what I
reading
thought,
a
like-
Wizard magazine interview where you talked about that a few days ago.
So
Yeah.
that's cool. I like that stuff. I know he loves comics, and I love like was it the Marvel put out that magazine where they mix their blood with the ink and all that. That stuff's
That's
cool,
wild. Because that's also like a legendary story, like Ozzy biting the head off of a bat. You know,
Yeah.
like the blood in the ink of a comic it's like in the same vein of like this like mythical rock star story, but that's actually true. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, that's when I was like, when I was like at that age where McFarlane Toys was putting out those Psycho Circus
Yeah, I
action
remember
figures
those.
based
Yeah.
on the like comics. And I forget the man, who was he? He's done a bunch of Venom and Carnage runs. Name starts with a C. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but he was doing the art for them at the time. And now he's like a super famous like Marvel artist. And I was like, man, I've been following this guy since he was doing Kiss comics. Like, that's insane. But I have a giant Kiss compendium of all their comic books, and it's the heaviest omnibus I own.
Oh,
It's
nice.
insane. Yeah, one day I'll read it. I haven't.
How many Kiss
Oh.
Kiss products were on sale at these concerts? Like a zillion.
Right, yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, just
Yeah.
the merch booth was like just as large as the stage, practically. You know what I
Coffins
mean?
and-
Like,
My wife's asking if you got charged money for touching the boot.
I
Probably.
wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, someone comes and charge $5 for.
It's funny because I think recently they sold Kiss as an IP,
Mhm.
right? So
Yeah.
like some company now owns everything Kiss.
Yeah.
So like expect to see commercials and like just Kiss and like where you think Gene Simmons couldn't penetrate the media, it's gonna happen now. And it's
Yeah.
gonna happen ferociously. And another little quick connection I wanted to make is what's the common denominator here between Kiss comics and our good friend from last episode with Zen the Intergalactic Ninja, breaking boundaries. Yeah, breaking the
Colorful
boundaries
characters.
of comics. What was the common denominator there? But licensing and merchandising.
Yeah,
Straight up.
absolutely.
You know what I
Straight
mean?
up.
And
Well,
that's
up,
what-
Well, that's
up
what
here,
Gene
up here in
took,
New England. Sorry, I'm
Yeah,
good.
that's what Gene took advantage of all that. You know,
yeah, man.
Dr. Mass said he's been going to Kiss shows with a friend since 1983. Lots of shows. Yeah, there's a lot of Kiss fans out there.
I wonder why they
enjoy their
didn't sue,
music.
didn't sue Kiss 108 up here. We had that radio channel or station up here. I wonder why they didn't sue them for that name. You know,
Yeah,
Kiss 108.
right. Yeah, Gene used to sue everybody.
Sure.
There was a quick aside before we get on with the interview. You ever see that comedian? Was it is it Craig Gass that does
I
the
think- yeah.
imitation of
He's awesome. He's like
he does an imitation of Gene Simmons, and it's
He
so
sounds
damn funny.
just like him. Yeah.
And he was telling
Yeah,
this
to me
story about how he was on like a Kiss. They do a Kiss cruise where all
Yeah.
the fans could go on the cruise, and he got on the loudspeaker. And the funniest thing he said, he was like, "Hello, everybody. This is Gene Simmons from Kiss." You know, like they didn't know who he was. It's so funny. But what were you gonna say, Johnny?
So the only Gene Simmons story that I have like in my orbit and proximity that I could tell is that I used to intern for a radio station, and Gene Simmons came into the studio
Oh, wow.
and he confused one of the actual radio hosts as the intern. So he tried getting this guy to go get a blueberry muffin. And he was just so like, I'm Gene Simmons and everybody else is just everybody else.
Yeah,
That he's just like asking the radio host for a blueberry muffin. It was just very funny.
Did he get
That's
it?
right.
Or-
That's really funny. But yeah, no, well, let's move back to Brandon. Let's
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, yeah,
Too many
rant
techno-
on Kiss.
Yeah, right.
yeah.
What
So
was
many
wait,
tangents.
connecting like Kiss and Spawn, dude. There you go. Like that was like the barrier. Like once I put those two together, I realized like how cool the comics were, and I've always been somewhat just very in that direction. But making comics seemed impossible for like my entire life because I never drew or did anything either. Too.
Yeah.
That's how I got involved with like trying to like write for comic book websites. Like I was going into like, I was like, oh, I'm switching my degree from music to English and writing, and I want to try to become a writer. And I declared myself that at some point. And that's kind of where I was like, if I whatever takes off first, if I did prose, film stuff or comics, I just aimed as hard as I could at all those things. And I was doing like journalism for comic book websites, and I was writing
really?
like a novel at that time I was trying to work on, and I was working on a film project, and anything that took off like kind of just put me in a direction. And eventually like just kind of went through school and things happened in life, and I wound up at Comix One out of those three mediums.
Oh, it's funny.
Mhm.
And like, were you always a writer, Brandon? Like, even when you were doing the music, were you always like writing music too?
Kinda. Yeah, like kind of in like high school, I was always doing stuff. And actually it was my senior like English teacher that like really encouraged my writing. And I never thought that was like an avenue for me. And even when I like left high school, I was like, oh, I'm gonna become an English major because music seems kind of, not like it didn't seem like it would work out at all. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
And then right when I decided that's when that band started and we started touring and a lot of cool stuff was happening. And I was like, oh, I'm going to switch to music. And that's when I became consumed with like my playing and staying up even later than I was, because I was really focused on like punk rock playing mostly, but learning different styles of music and being into bands like Between the Buried and Me and that album Colors was like one that changed my life because they incorporate so many different styles of music into that album. And it's one, long metal, progressive metal album. And it's, just insane. So I wanted to become like an elite bass player, and I was working my way towards that. But
Awesome.
yeah, so that's kind of like how that kind of like bridged together at some point with my schooling and everything. And I think that's where like the discipline of making comics and doing what I do came into play, because I knew with music, you had to just like put your head down and just try for hours. And it doesn't matter what's going on around you. You just got to keep, like working your fingers through the fretboard and whatnot,
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, that takes like massive amounts of time to master, right? Would
Yeah.
you say? Yeah. Yeah, it's like anything though. I mean, like if you want to be good at something, even making comics, it's like
Yeah.
you gotta put in the time, and there's no easy route to doing anything, even though it looks it, on the surface, like when you don't know somebody, you don't see all the hours it took for them to get to that one point,
And there's no like definitive number for every person either. Like we're all so very different as creators. It's like your 5,000 hours is different than my 5,000 hours is different from your 10,000 hours. And it's, it's so different. You know what I mean?
100%, dude. Yeah. And that's a big part of like what I do and what, we're starting up a live show called Spilled Ink. It's going to be a live drawing show because with
cool.
Apollo, I used to do one, and that's what taught me how to draw. And we'll talk about that right now, but just to like plug that show real fast too, I guess. But
Yeah.
the whole thing about it is like, I don't know how to draw, and I'm not that great of a drawer, but I love to make a comic myself in full, in like, a bad comic in like 5 years, or like a half bad comic in 10 years. You know what I mean? But I want to start now. And if I show people that you just got to put the time in, and you could watch me do it for 2 hours a week and with friends and a guest, like, hey, like I'm learning from these people, you can learn stuff too. So it's kind of a way to encourage that education and get people to like not be afraid to pick up the pen or pencil and put in those hours. Because I mean, you guys know too, as you get older, it's harder to put in those hours. Like when I was a kid playing bass, dude, I could, get off of school, play bass till 2 a.m. and then wake up at 6:30, go to school, do my whole day. Or, then I became like a manager after that. And I'd go to class from, 9 a.m. to noon, and then work from noon to 9, stay up to 2 a.m., play bass, and then on repeat,
Yeah, exactly.
But I can't do that anymore.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I even say this on panels, like if I'm at a panel or something, like I so regrettably wish I had my head on right in my 20s to make comics instead of just doing whatever I was doing, because I'd be that much further along, I'd be that much better. You know what I mean? But it's like, but also giving that time up also wouldn't make me who I am today. So
Right.
it's like
Right.
forest for the trees, you know?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think about that too. I think about all the time I wasted on video games and like you
Video
just think
games,
about
chasing girls,
yeah,
getting
Everything.
blitzed out of my
balls.
wits.
We're hanging out at Chess King,
Yeah, well,
or whatever,
put some good time in the arcade though, and I'm
Yeah,
not
it was.
not regretful about that.
Yeah.
Time I spent in front of Tekken machines, I do not regret.
Mhm.
It all
Love
makes
it.
like you said, Johnny, like you find it when you're supposed to, I think, as a destination kind of thing or destiny kind of thing. I mean,
Correct.
Yeah.
yeah, no, I hear you, Brandon. Though, as you get older, it is tougher to do a lot of things. Like I don't have the stamina I used to at conventions. Like I still
Mhm.
go to them, but I, I almost takes like a day to recover or if you get con crud, forget about it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But it's yeah, you just got to do the best you can as you get older and stuff, and even now, like I'm pulled in a million directions with this YouTube show, but also I'm doing the convention. And I want to try to get my comic going. And so I got, every day it's like, what do I do now? And I also letter for people too. I do comic
Oh.
lettering for people. So that ends up being a good chunk of my day as well, so.
Well, your time becomes more valuable too as you get older. You can prioritize your time better too. Maybe
Yeah, that's true.
Now that we're old men.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's true. It's you don't even think about like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, so when did you make your first comic book? Was it like how long ago was that?
A year ago.
No,
Yeah.
no kidding. It's
Yeah,
only
no.
been that long. Wow.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, it's been a long journey to try to make comics because in 2015, that's when I declared myself like a writer and whatnot. And then that's when I switched my whole major over to writing and figuring out those paths. And I was just kind of working on them for a while. And I was living in El Paso, and I was figuring I was just going to focus on my schooling for a bit. And really, like, it was just a waste of my time, to be honest. Like, when I was going, I feel like my community college taught me the most because it opened me up to a lot, and it got me very interested in topics and learning things. And I felt like that was beneficial. And then I went to the university there, and then I just had the biggest load of crap from all the teachers. And I had like these big adventurous ideas, and they just really wanted to I just felt like I was being hacked down the whole time. And
Yeah,
I just
don't love comics. It
they
took.
don't
I
like
don't even think now.
sci-fi, any of that, nothing.
Yeah.
And that's when I was like, I just want to be a crazy sci-fi writer. Like that
Yeah,
was
right.
my fixation. You know what I mean? Especially when you first start, you want that wild like space opera type of book and everything. But no, yeah. And then I started going to Full Sail University actually, and that started up right before like COVID happened too. So I got to really just like isolate myself and focus on like school for a while. And that was kind of cool because I really got to experiment on stuff and see what I wanted to do. And dude, college is a total scam. Yeah. And 100%. And it's one of those things like I have crazy student loan debt, but like who is the irresponsible one? Me going to college or them giving me 60 grand to become a poet? Who was the irresponsible one?
Or not even giving you your money's worth on any level.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Doesn't it seem
Yeah.
like you worked much harder in high school than you did in college ever? Like
Right.
you did.
Yeah.
It's
yeah,
like
it kind of feels that way. Yeah, it does.
I remember writing so many papers and term papers and studying so hard in high school, and in college, like whatever. It's like no, I don't know. It's more not, it's like a joke. It was just like not
It
like
really is.
not as much work. I didn't feel like I did as much work in college as I did in high school. I mean, it's just, I don't know.
And even at Full Sail, like I thought, I thought I was getting more out of it than the other university. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was, again, I felt like how I was in community college where I was presented a lot of avenues because like every month was a different class, and I really got to like test my skill and like write stuff real quickly. But there again, I was stagnant. I didn't know how to make comics. So in 2018, I had some friends that were making their own podcast, and I was like, what if I did a comic book podcast to keep me, I'm writing these reviews. I was writing for a website called Comix First that no longer exists. But they were kind of big for a little bit. They sent me out to like New York Comic-Con. I got to like interview creators for the first time, and I got really inspired. Yeah. And I thought that was going to be my gateway into comics. Was like, I was listening to all these like, Kevin Smith's early Fat Man on Batman. Those were big podcast like influences on me, because the way he interviewed creators and the way he got so much out of it, and was like, he introduced me to Grant Morrison, and that's how I really got to research him and stuff like that. Was Fat Man on Batman. Those early interviews really
I'll have
hooked
to
me
go
in.
back and look at those. I mean, I like Kevin Smith, always been a fan, but I never watched a lot of his podcasts. So I'll have to go back, especially if he's talking about comic creators and stuff.
Yeah, and it was just comic book creators at the time too. Like Joe
cool.
Quesada was on it, Scott Snyder was on it, a lot of cool stuff. And that's what like got me intrigued in comic book journalism. And I wanted to like follow that route, and was like, maybe I can network my way into meeting people and making comics. And then you're trying to just like find people online to make comics and pay people. And I had that happen a couple times. It just never worked out or continued. But Apollo, like, I essentially, like 2018, my friends made a podcast, and overnight I thought of Apollo City Comics. And I drew up this little Jack Kirby inspired logo and whatnot. And we started a show, and I just studied comics just to study comics and be part of the craft. And eventually, I don't even know what the question was anymore. I'm just kind of going off the screen.
No, this is great. No, like keep going.
But eventually, like, I did it with a friend there, and then Brandon Makata became my co-host because of COVID. We got to do a bunch of Zoom stuff, and we started interviewing people. And that's when I met Mark Bernal, and he was just starting up lesser known comics. So we're trying to promote him, trying to like interview him, get him on the show, and talk about his imprint, his publishing imprint. And then, me and Mark stayed in connection. I tried to write a couple sample scripts for him, and it looked like it was going somewhere. And then stuff was just all over the place with lesser known. And it wasn't until Shelley Bond was doing that Filth and Grammar class online. And that's when I signed up for it, met this dude, Nick Fresson. And I was like, what if we, like made a comic, and a year from now we would promote it at San Diego Comic-Con. And literally, like, we were like, hey, let's make a book. And we started working on a story called Teenage Babylon. And I told Mark about it. And I was like, hey, I finally think I'm making a comic. I've been talking about it all this time. I think I'm finally going to do it. And he was like, make an anthology first, like build a fan base. Like Apollo has a fan base. You have your podcast, and then do an anthology based on, Teenage Babylon. You keep on saying it's the cosmic punk rock love story. Make a punk rock anthology, build that community. And so when you launch your book after the anthology, it doesn't matter if the anthology fails or does great. It doesn't matter. It's about getting a fan base and then launching your book, so you're not starting from scratch, starting from zero. And I was like, that's a smart idea. Yeah, dude, and it fucking worked.
Did it really? That's great.
Dude, when you went to San Diego, did you go to the Creator Connection panel by any chance?
I've been to one or two of them before.
I think we met before.
Dude, you seem familiar from the moment we've started talking.
Dude, I think we met in San Diego at Creator Connection.
That
Teenage Babylon rings a bell. And I don't know where specifically, but I think we may have met before. So sorry, I just had like a neuron just fired, and I was like, wait a minute, I think I met this person before.
Somewhere between like 2016 and 2019 is when I'd been to that creator convention at San Diego, because I was going for a number of years. I got hooked up with passes for a couple of years, and I got to go with some friends. And dude, yeah, life changing. That's when I was a big collector, not even into like networking. I was just getting books signed and flipped and whatnot. But yeah, dude, maybe because San Diego was a big part of my I think comic book upbringing in a sense too.
Yeah, I've been going consistently since 2009 and doing the Creator Connection pretty regularly.
Oh wow!
So I'm almost guaranteed we cross paths at one point.
Had to have, for sure.
Yeah.
Just want to say hi to Brandon DePillis. Thanks for joining us.
He's
and
amazing.
Also, hey JD Ross.
What's up, my man?
Tonight. We had him on the show a couple weeks ago. Hey guys, good to see you, man. Yeah, no, I've only been to San Diego, well, twice. I went once 2008, and then when they did the special edition November one, and like coming out of COVID.
Yeah,
I was able to get into that show. It's better than I mean, I don't have any basis of it because it's like it was so long since the last show.
It was contractually obligatory.
It was good though.
That's what that was. It was contractually obligatory because the convention center had to fulfill an agreement, and so did Comic-Con. So, hell,
a lot of empty tables.
Be damned, we had a convention.
Yeah, right. We was gonna say we had it was a decent crowd, but it was still kind of weird because of COVID, you know.
Yeah.
It was.
It was
I actually
okay.
did pretty well though, if
I
I
did
remember
too.
correctly, given the circumstances.
Yeah, definitely. But
That's
yeah,
cool.
so that's cool. How long is so Apollo City is a company that you got involved in? They were already established.
No,
Is
I made
that-
it. That's all me.
Oh, you
That-
made
I
it.
just,
Okay.
Yeah, I just
Nice.
thought of a title overnight and a logo overnight. And I just declared it my podcast. And then once the punk anthology did really well, surprisingly, and it really
Awesome.
tripped me out, dude. I got funded in under an hour, which
wow.
was like
Amazing.
unspeakable. Like the
great.
first 30
Yeah.
minutes, it was insane, and we've never done that since then. So it was kind of cool.
Mhm.
Like, never
Did it
happened
the right
again.
time,
Yeah.
you know?
But yeah, I think a lot of people were hyped because I'd been talking about making comics for so long. I mean, it was, this book came out last year. It's 2023 was my first comic, and this is the punk anthology right up here.
Oh yeah,
It's a
hang on,
variant cover.
Let me make
and,
you big.
there's-
so we can
Oh, I
kinda
could
see
actually
it.
just grab it real fast.
Yeah, hold it
There
up
we
to
go.
the camera.
There we go.
Oh, cool.
Nicholas Fresson did the cover.
Oh, I think
and-
I saw that comic.
I backed that book.
Johnny, did
Oh,
we?
dude.
I could have sworn we had a creator on that. Was
We
part
had a
of that.
creator on that worked on that book.
Yeah,
I forget who it was.
yeah, we did. I don't know who it was.
You
though.
guys were very highly spoken of in the community when I said I was going to be on the show. I
Oh,
don't
really?
remember. Yeah, so I mean,
That's good to know.
Oh,
That's good.
not
Yeah,
bad.
yeah.
Hey,
So
you
that was
got a
really
lamb
cool.
stand too, huh?
Yeah, that's our boy Matt. Yeah, he
Oh, okay.
helps us with everything, man.
Yeah, I got
Matt's-
one too for my show. Johnny has one, and
Yeah, we
that's
love
We
it.
put him on every Kickstarter, and we try to get him as much business as possible. I love that dude so much. He's
Yeah,
really done a lot for us.
he's genuine and like
Yeah.
really like underpriced. Like I think you should charge more for what he does.
Yes,
Dude, for
honestly.
real. Yeah.
And you were
I mean,
saying
he's so supportive.
Yeah. What were we gonna say,
You-
Harry?
you were saying on a different podcast, each of those little mini covers are stories within the anthology, or in that.
Yeah, exactly. On the cover, Nicholas drove like it's a homage to the Rancid album and Out Come the Wolves.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so he added on the floor, he put a bunch of like, pieces of art that are within the book itself from all the
Mhm.
different creators. So everybody's kind of on that cover. And it's such a cool, like, especially growing up on punk rock roots and everything, and like having him do that homage come out of nowhere. And it's a really awesome thing. But yeah, it's my first book, 60 pages
Oh, that's
of
awesome, dude.
just 20 something
Congrats.
creators. Thank you.
That's a
Um,
great to have your first book do really well like that. That's awesome.
That is cool.
I'll have to look at that later and see which creator was on our show, because I do remember a creator coming on and promoting that essentially. Like they had a story in there or something, I think, if I remember right.
There's like 27, I think, creators on this book in
That's
total.
cool.
So it's super cool that it goes that far and
Yeah.
about, you know what I
there's
mean?
outreach there for sure.
Have you thought of doing another volume since it was so successful, or are you afraid to do like the sophomore? Are you afraid of the sophomore slump?
No, in fact, I mean, we've done a lot since then. Sorry, one of my cats is. What's up, Sebs? How you doing, big guy? One of
Cameo.
the 3 cats is going to come up and hang out right now.
Yeah, that's
But so Apollo, we started that, and then we did this Kickstarter in May. These posters are punk posters that came with it, and so it has the
cool.
the closing date. May 25th was when it closed up. And so it's like a punk rock show poster.
That's cool. That's a great idea.
And yeah, Max Flowers designed it, and Milo, they Elgato Prints also like printed them and worked on them and everything. So it's super cool. We got those done, and at the end of the campaign, I was talking to Mark, and I had kind of had a bunch of stuff in play at that point. I had networked with a few creators, and I had some I had confidence making comics. I felt like I could find people and finally do them. And so I declared myself being a publishing imprint, like kind of wildly and out of nowhere. And because Apollo had a name already. So I was like, you know what, if I'm going to be doing this and this works, I might as well figure out a path for this. And so I met this kid, Alex Batts, at the, just right before I launched this book. And he was working on a cyberpunk anthology, and he didn't know what to do. And so Mark was like, hey, Brandon's been doing this anthology. Talk to him. Maybe you'll learn some lessons. Maybe he could just give you a couple tips. And so Alex and I met, and we had I was like, yeah, let's meet for 15 minutes. I'll tell you what I know. And, we'll just, spew the shit. So I just got to help this kid out real fast. I meet Alex and we talk for like 4 hours. It was like a great first date. And we just like stayed on Zoom for like ever. And Alex is like my best friend in the entire world. He's my right-hand man for everything. All of this success for Apollo and Inspired Ink. He is the person behind the curtain that nobody sees. That's like running the ship. You know what I mean?
He's the invisible hand.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. He is why all of this is like happening, and he keeps me very organized and like straight, leveled headed, and it's the most amazing like business partner and like collaborator and friend in the world. So we started working on this imprint, and so we put Cybersync, a punk anthology. This is a poster we're putting into it, this Get Synced poster right there. The books I'm getting in this week. This Kickstarter was in November, but with CWS's transition and everything, a lot of shipments kind of got stuck and pushed back and everything. So that happened, and that was our second anthology. And then I had met a creator named Kai Brown around May of last year, and we started talking about her idea for a shadow anthology, which was more of an emotional calling. And so we kickstarted that in January of this year, which was another really well-funded books. All these books were funded on the day one and whatnot. It got projects we love. So super encouraging, doing 3 anthologies back to back, all within like 8 months, which was insane.
Wow, that's crazy.
We're just a giant outpour. Yeah.
It's cool that you. Sorry, Keith.
Go ahead, Johnny. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's very cool that you're able to marry like punk rock and comics. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and music and comics. Like I admire that. I've always wanted. I'm gonna like kind of romanticize it a little bit, but I've always wanted to do an anthology based upon the music of Faith No More. But I've been intimidated by taking on the size of that kind of project, and then also getting deep into it and maybe running into legal issues. You know what I mean?
Honestly, you do an anthology, and then every project after that will seem easy. So I just encourage it. For like, it's like a really intense workout, and then you're like
boot camp.
Yeah, honestly,
it's boot camp. Yeah,
we just funded our one. It's fun. It's worth it. It builds a community. You get to help people. Like we got to publish people that have never been published before. Max Flowers, who's doing so much in the comic book industry for indie comics right now. That kid's on fire. And I didn't realize I was the first person to publish him. And I was just like, how is that possible? And then some of these other people that just haven't gained traction and they're part of our projects.
There's so many artists out there that are so talented that just don't have or just never had the opportunity. I mean, you got to think too, like the main companies like Marvel, DC, they're so much smaller now too than they used to be. So it's as hard as it was, say 20 years ago to break into comics. I'd say it's 10 times harder now, to do it.
You have to figure it out and make it your own way. And that's kind of what we did. We realized that too. We realized like the expectations and possibilities of going to some of these companies was just so low, and they're just going to reject us forever. And we're just going to drive ourselves crazy.
Do
your own thing. And it's worked for me and Alex really well as we've run Apollo, and Max is our designer who's done all of our cool stuff. And then we did Hyperforce. Hyperforce just wrapped up. And that was our first creator-owned book with Adam Matthew Smith, who was running behind that. That was funded, and now we're doing Outer Space, where we brought these other kids in, and Ben and Eric, which is currently going on. But to answer your question real fast before we dive into that, yes, I always intended there to be a volume 2. There's an ad for volume 2 and volume 1, but it's so overwhelming with everything that I've just stated happening. It just hasn't.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I turn around and do it, and it just didn't. So
you're kind of like a publishing imprint now.
Yeah,
that's
awesome. We're essentially the Vertigo Young Animal to lesser knowns DC. That's how we've always put it. We make comics with a lot of very passionate creators. We're very selective for the people we bring on. We go for a certain flavor and angst and personality. And so all of our books fall along a certain tone and a line. And they're we're very craft based as well. Alex and I are very big nerds when it comes to craft and just sort of writing and art. And there's a podcast called You Are a Storyteller. I promote them way too much. I think they should pay me by now. But if you're like a craft person and you want to know about like your craft, it doesn't matter what your craft is. If you just want to get better at it, You Are a Storyteller will like help you in every way possible, even if you're navigating life. Yeah, it is a phenomenal like podcast where they have these great people, Brian McDonald and Jesse Bryan, just talking about the craft of writing and how it relates to every aspect of life. And dude, I will listen to that entire show. Like I'll binge it like a Netflix show before I start any project, because it just gives me so many ideas and understanding.
And it inspires you to like make that project.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Now, do you guys have distribution outside of like crowdfunding? Do you guys do you have anything with like Diamond or Lunar or anything like that?
No, we don't.
Or are you
because
kind of
it's-
working towards that?
Yeah, actually, it's kind of crazy because there's stuff in the works right now with Comix Wellspring and stuff that projects I'm in charge of, where we're figuring out a distribution model for indie comic creators and how to get us in shops and how to make it easier. And there's a lot of happening with this since we've moved away from Greco printing, and we are now like under this new establishment that's like, a bigger, better, upgraded facility.
Nice.
The transition's been a little rough because there's same amount of people working, but just like bigger, facilities and people.
I think I got a batch of books I'm still waiting on.
Is Tony still involved or no?
No, he's
Anthony?
actually not. No, those guys are still with Greco. They there was a big buyout recently. Yeah. And this all happened. Yep.
Okay.
Not a lot of people were aware of this because of like what was happening with that transition, and the buyout was happening so suddenly. You have these kind of 4 or 5 main people working for a company, and now they're handling the entire move of the company while processing orders and like handling customer service and everything. It kind of all got jumbled up and moved way quicker than anyone expected.
Wow.
So like their delivery on like, announcing it to the people, there was some announcement, but it was so trickled in like with the weeds, it kind of got lost. And there's been a lot of miscommunication. There's been like transfer of services, or emails weren't going through for a bit. We just recently discovered all sorts of the most wild stuff ever when you move, you know what I mean, happened.
Yeah, every problem you could think of that could
everything
happened, right?
Dude, yeah, it was a madhouse. And I'd been working with Comix Wellspring for the past year, just working on this podcast Inspired Ink, coming up with it with Dan, now the CEO of Comix Wellspring. And we've been working on it, and we kind of had some talks where he was like, all this is happening with us, and we need to find a way to connect better with the community. And so that, people understand that like, we're not falling off of our stuff, but we're just having to like work with things right now. Like, and we realized that, he's like, I think we need to call upon the indie comic book community. So he brought me on board as like a full-time person, and he's brought Alex doing like extra work for us, and he's heavily involved with stuff. We has Brian Weber, who's the LKC website guy, now doing heavy stuff for their new website and all this cool stuff. So he relied on the indie comic community because of what we had been establishing in the background and what we were building, and he knew that was going to save them, because it's essentially our community, it's our company at that point. It's very punk rock of them as well.
I think so too.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
They are one of the best printers too, like Johnny was saying, I think in the green room about I've tried Kablam and you name it, whoever's was doing comics, but once I found Comix Wellspring, it kind of stopped there, and I've just used them from now on.
Anytime I've strayed from Comix Wellspring, I've been unhappy with the product that was sent, whether it's the way the color looks when it's printed, or even the way they so like other places cut the books. It's just it didn't look good. And Comix Wellspring, I mean, you guys have always put care into it. Like even the addition of like the white like fold covers on the like that is just so awesome. Like you guys really do put care into the product, and
what a testimonial.
But here's why though, because as somebody who buys these books to resell them at shows, the care that's put into being presented, I want to make sure that the product I sell is quality. I don't have to do quality control before I sell my books, my products. I want to be able to just bag board them and be ready to go,
Yeah, dude, I feel you on that. And it's one of those things that's so precious to you. It's something you've been working on for so long. Dude, my first comic came out in 2023. I've been wanting to make comics since 2015. You know what I mean? Like trying in some way. Like, dude, that was just 8 years of me being like, this didn't work, this didn't work, this didn't work, this didn't work. So I finally like get a book out, and you want it to be the coolest looking thing ever, and not like kill you in the wallet, and not have you like sacrifice your firstborn and like then deal with all these like crazy stuff. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
it's been really reliable, and I think that's why we vibed so well with them too. And I got to go to San Diego last year on behalf of Comix Wellspring, because I did some panels, and they were like, you're doing those panels, promote some stuff, go up to some people. And I was going up to people and just handing out flyers, and people were telling me their experiences with these other places, and I was just like, man, that's insane. Like, I have never heard about any of, and that's why like this whole hiccup we're having these past couple months, and it'll probably be about a month and a half more before things get really settled. We had some big shifts this week happen that were really positive, but like it's such a letdown, because we do have such a good streak as a company in our performance and our quality, and we hate under delivering to people who like work as hard as we know you work. I know how hard it is to make a comic and to go through the process and put like everything into it. So it's one of those things where I'm glad that Dan and everyone running it knew to be like, what, if we're going to like understand our customer, we got to bring our customer in and really like resonate. So we clearly know how important all this is, because the people working for us are doing this work.
But what great feedback though too. You have speaking of boots, there's been a lot of boot talk tonight, but you have like boots on the ground talking to different people about their comic book experience. It's not you learning all the horror stories of other people's experience with other comic books, and make yours better. That's
it's kind of rad, honestly. And it's a trip being a part of something like that too. Like for me too, like again, it was like I hadn't been making comics when I met up with CWS, and I was looking for a way into like, oh well, I get to podcast and maybe make a couple bucks in podcasts. Like, how rad. That's a way into like this industry that I'd be into, and it just like blew doors open as well. It's all part of like this I get to say I'm full-time comics now, which is the coolest thing in the world.
So this is your full-time job, right? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Pretty
And well, I think like, and that's why we started this show too. It's like we've met so many awesome people, and like we started this show about maybe a month or two into COVID, like when the whole world was closed off, but like the internet was going wild. So, and me and Johnny decided to start the show, and then Harry came on like a year ago with us.
Well, it's kind of a part of it too. I was busting you guys, individual.
Yeah, he was always in the audience throwing up comments.
I'm here anyways, guys.
Right.
But like, I find it's a good way to promote your comics, and also meet like-minded people that you like probably wouldn't meet in some instances, because I mean we've had people overseas, we've had like people on the West Coast join the show and things like that, so it's great.
And then when you go to a convention and meet these people in person, it is the coolest thing in the world.
Absolutely.
Like, it's a trip meeting half the people I interview when you go somewhere and you just recognize you're just friends instantly, and it's so exciting, Yeah,
that's the one thing I love about this community. Like, obviously there's bad apples all around and stuff, but I find that especially at conventions, people are so friggin' cool.
Oh yeah.
I've had very little bad encounters with creators, in the 20 plus years I've been doing this, so it's very small and minute instances,
It's a pretty easy barometer in indie comics. And at least the way I see it is that it's like when I talk to someone, it's like, oh, you have an ego? See you later.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, dude.
That's really all it comes down to. It's like that's usually the common denominator. Is like if there's somebody who just has this ego, which I know that they're out there. You've seen them. Go take a wander through YouTube. You'll see them all there. You know what I mean? So and like that's like the first thing. If like they have an ego, then I know this person isn't for me.
Yeah.
No, and that's how you see. I mean, honestly, there's a lot of shows that rank better than Apollo and then like even Inspired Ink and whatnot. But it's like I look at some shows and I look at the topics they're talking about, and it's either something very like big too trendy, or it's them like bashing something. And those are the two things I don't do on either one of my shows. I'll bash the big two sometimes, because I can bash some Snyder stuff. But like, other than that, there's no like, it's very respectful, very uplifting. And that's the whole point of Inspired Ink too. We're just like, dude, this is rough. Like making comics is rough. You know what I mean? Like life is rough.
Yeah,
I really
right.
want to uplift my friends and have them uplift me and us like all make art and encourage each other, because like inspiring someone to like, that was the thing with the anthology. And that's where it really hit me, was like, we put up a post and I thought I'd get like 10 submissions in. And I was already asking some people like, hey, if I make an anthology, would you make something for it? Like for sure. And they were
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'll do that. So I had like 2 or 3 people lined up to make, at least it'll be a 20-page book, you know? And I got like 80 submissions into this anthology. And it was wild being like, we inspired people to go out and make art specifically for this. And having that, like, I hate to call it, but like having that power to like get someone and go and create a story and make art and put time and effort into it and send it off to you, it meant so much to us, you know? And we just really wanted a channel that like, yeah, exactly. Brandon saying it, all
Love
that
that.
positivity, like
Yeah.
that's all we wanted to do, is just channel that and push that forward. And, you know, because I had come out of a really rough life situation, like right before I, you know, as I moved to the East Coast, and I was in such a bad spot that like the community and the uplifting of this project and everything that's happened, you know, because of it, it's because of my community and it's because of the indie comics people I was involved with that like gave me the success. Like a lot of people say like I worked real hard for it and blah 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 and like, you know, all this stuff, and I'm like, I don't know, man, it doesn't really feel like I did anything, but it's really because like you guys just like had a lot of faith in me and really helped me every step of the way, and you guys were all there and you all showed up, and I just like thank you, you know what I mean? And that's how we continue stuff. That's how indie comics work, and it's worked for every single person who's done that type of stuff too.
Yeah, I agree. Like there's, you know, like when you're making the comics, you're essentially alone most of the time. But you walk into those conventions and you meet. My convention season hasn't started yet. It starts in a couple weeks with Free Comics Book Day, but seeing all that, we call it the con family, you know, seeing the con family up here in the New England area every year and just seeing what everybody's working on. And I love like just a comic based convention where you can walk around, see what everybody's working on, find some new books. I love reading other indie creators' books. And yeah, I mean, I love the whole thing. And I know even my wife's an artist as well. And when we come back from a show, she's so like hopped up on inspiration. She wants to jump right in and start drawing stuff. And I feel it too, you know, and so I love this medium. And it's like, it's funny too. Like, you know, you always hear besides the community stuff, there's always that other side where it's like comics will break your heart. You know, that famous Jack Kirby quote.
I have a t-shirt that says that. I wear that to every convention. It's like
do you really?
Yeah.
And I've experienced a little bit of that. There was, you know, I think maybe like before I started my own convention, like in 2015, I was having that like, oh man, these shows are not for me anymore. You know, they're hardly about comics, blah, blah, blah. But then I just went back to my love of comics, and now things are different. And like, I have a fun time no matter what show I'm at, and no matter what kind of audience or what kind of show it is. I always can talk to people, and you know, it's a mindset. If anything, it's a mindset, you know.
So that's a Jack Kirby quote.
It is a Jack Kirby quote.
So what do you mean by that? You think it was something?
I think, well, because, you know, I mean, as a creator, there's a lot of there's a lot of up and downs, and sometimes those downs can really,
oh, geez,
really. I thought that was your arm. I thought you were
I know. Like, speaking of Elgato Prince,
yeah, right. But I always like, you know, there's when you're down, it's sometimes hard to get out of it, and a lot of us are artists, and so we have like a lot of emotional attachment to the comics industry and things like that.
How bad he was treated with like all of his creations kind of getting stripped from him and not getting his artwork back, and like all the legal battles he had to get to. Like that dude had to grind day in and day out and didn't get his.
He was very introverted too, and you know.
Yeah, and I think the saddest thing about Kirby is he never got to see the success of his stuff the way Stan Lee did. Like I really wish Jack had lived as long as Stan Lee, because he probably wouldn't even be able to believe like the stuff they did with the Marvel universe, you know.
He probably wouldn't have volunteered to be honored like Stan Lee was, and all these like little like movies that he's been in. Like
He was he has a cameo in the Hulk TV show
Yeah,
somewhere.
yeah, he was doing sketches. Yeah, like in the
He's doing
courtroom.
sketches
Yeah.
in one of the
Courtroom?
episodes.
wasn't the TV movie, right, with Thor and all that?
No,
Wasn't-
if you go on
was it Jeff?
Wikipedia, you probably can find out which
Mhm.
episode it is, but
I'll
he's
check it
in
out.
it. And he's one of those creators. When I first started in comics, not to get into a Jack Kirby thing, but
I could
didn't
roller
get
coaster off of that
Kirby.
too.
What's
Mhm.
that?
I
What'd
could
you say?
roller coaster off of Kirby stuff
Oh,
for a
yeah.
long time too. Yeah.
Well, he's one of those guys I didn't understand until later in my comic
Same.
career.
Talk
Because
about
like
that all the time. Yeah.
yeah, like I grew up with I grew up in the 90s Image rock and roll era with McFarlane, Liefeld, and all that stuff. And I looked at Kirby stuff at the time. I'm like, why is everybody going, why does everyone love this guy?
Didn't make sense.
It didn't make sense. But now I can't get enough of his artwork. Like when
Because
I
he
see
drew outside the box, literally.
yeah, no,
Not
his
like-
artwork is awesome. And
Yeah.
I can't, it's just, the way he drew action, the way he drew characters, and the amount of characters he created is unbelievable. I mean, it's staggering. Like,
Mhm.
What
I
he
don't
could
think
do
there'll
with the
ever
page
be a
is, like,
comic creator like him ever again,
No, Kirby was top tier where he's like, you're not seeing violence, you're seeing action. Like
Yeah.
there's literal movement on the page and like the craziest, most amazing poses that made them all larger than life with these grandeur, hand gestures and everything. Like, yeah,
like
super awesome.
like they always the character going like this or what,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And actually Brandon DePillis made this like make sense for me the most when I got to interview him on Inspired Ink, and he was telling me that he starts with his drawings like with whatever's the most forefront first. So if it's like the hand reaching out, he goes there and then draws backwards. And ever since I started doing that, like Kirby's drawings make sense to me. Like constructing that anatomy like all makes sense, and it just seems so much more bombastic. The more you get to analyze and really see the breakdown behind it. But yeah, DePillis is the one that like kind of pointed that out to me, and I always just
That's
like admired
awesome.
that now.
Yeah,
Well,
no.
You
Go
look
ahead,
at what we even talked about it earlier with Gene Simmons and Black Bolt, right? Like
Yeah. Mhm.
that pose stuck with a young Gene Simmons so much
Yeah.
that's what he adopted into his display for his performance.
Dude,
Yeah.
yeah, for reals.
I mean, like the amount of inspiration coming from that guy and the amount of output. Did you ever hear how much output Jack Kirby had
Wild.
like in a day? It's like unbelievable the amount of artwork he was putting out.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Like, not only did I'm sure he want to, but like he had to. Like, he
Yeah.
had to feed his family off of that. He wasn't making money off of comics,
Right.
and that's why it's so heartbreaking. Is that like this dude went to like, was it a coroner's grave or something? What's it called? Where it's like unmarked and there was nothing there for a bit.
Yeah.
Like,
Isn't that called? I forget. It's like I
yeah,
forget the name
something
of it.
like that. Yeah, and it's just like this dude. Stan Lee is a household name, when like Jack Kirby should really be. It should be Jack Kirby and Stan Lee, not to like
Right,
totally
right,
discredit
yeah.
Stan.
Right.
Stan deserves way more credit than Bill. Not Bill Finger,
Bob
Bob Kane.
Kane.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Bob Kane. That's
Yeah.
for sure. But like
He brought
Bill
everything to
Finger.
life.
Yeah.
Well, it was always like you always hear those arguments, Stan Lee or Jack Kirby, and it's like the Beatles. It's like
Mhm.
they're talented separately, but when they come together, it was like that magic that made
Well,
them more than what they could have been separately. You know what I mean?
Stan Lee was a voice that Jack Kirby wasn't. You know what I mean? He
Yeah.
spoke volumes in his artwork, but Stan Lee was his voice. Because he was very shy and like introverted and everything. So he
Yeah,
was his
Potter's
voice box.
Grave. That's what I was thinking.
Potter's
of.
Grave. Yeah, Potter's Grave. Yeah.
Potter's Field.
Yeah.
It's like the pro wrestlers that are really good in the ring, but they're not good on the mic, so they have to give them a manager who's the mouthpiece.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly,
absolutely.
Yeah.
That's almost exactly what it is. Like Stan Lee
Yeah.
was more the showman, and Jack Kirby was more the craftsman. you know,
Yeah.
and-
Honestly.
but their magic together is what really made Marvel pop. I could talk about this for
Same.
for
100%.
days.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Speaking of inspired art, did you create your own logo for Inspired Ink? Is that your?
No. So Inspired Ink, I only created the first logo for Apollo, which that's like it's like a literal city that's inspired by Jack Kirby's Lord of Light, and then Max Flowers or Evan McGuire went and redid it to this other one, and then Max Flowers did the spray painted Apollo logo, but for Inspired Ink, this is something I signed on with. And
okay.
we brainstormed the whole like little letterbox logo down here, if you see it.
This one right here.
Yeah. So Ink is the character of Comix Wellspring. That is their mascot that they've had as a company. And it kind of was because, yeah, pretty much kind of it's because of the whole Greco printing thing. And I think it spawned out of that. So essentially, I'm sure I wouldn't be surprised if that got like redone one day. But when I came on and started thinking about the Inspired Ink one, I was like, let's like make it as comic book focused as possible, and doing the whole word balloon aspect and like having
I like
pencils
that.
and pens.
But
like,
also look at this Kirby pose right here.
Yeah,
Right,
You know?
exactly, right.
Yeah.
He's not pointing though.
Fantastic. But
Yeah,
everybody, I put the link to Inspired Ink in the chat. Go over and give Comix Wellspring and Brandon a like or a subscribe on the channel. He's doing great interviews over there. As you can see, he's got some great topics, especially if you're an indie creator. But anybody could get like some entertainment or just tips and, get inspired by other creators, kind of like what we do on this show, And like we were talking about earlier, there's so many YouTube channels out there that like, their whole mantra is everything sucks and, let's make fun of everything else. And there's very little of us type of channels where we're trying to lift people up and spread like the awesomeness of.
Keith, I told you before. I mean, watching this show when you guys first started doing the show, it actually inspired me to go back to drawing again or draw more. So
that's
fantastic. It works.
Yeah, and that's the whole point is like just telling people like. When you hear some of these stories and how some, Dan Price quit comics for like 10 years and then came back into the game, and Bigfoot Knows Karate is like such a huge, awesome.
Yeah, we've had Dan on a couple of times. Great,
wonderful dude,
great guy.
And it's just all of us go through our struggles, and all of us, that's why I like highlighting is like the struggles and rewards of making comics, and then bringing in some craft aspects because that's something I admire like crazy. And just everything I'd want out of a comic book show, I try to do with this. And that's why like all of these interviews are very, I do some preparation. I know about our creators and everything, but it's like, I like having just a conversation. And you could tell that when they come into the room, I just hit record and we just start talking and we just let it spiral from there. We get comfortable and I don't like putting, doing Apollo for so long and doing interviews. Like I've done them so many ways for, in person and, Zoom and all that. I've kind of just tried to figure out a way to make it, easy on my mental for one, for like the output we're going for, and just like making our guests like comfortable to really open up too. And that's something to get someone comfortable with you via computer screen and to really start opening up about themselves and things like that I've learned that takes a certain finesse and effort. And some people it's really easy. Some people it does take some work, but like, it's really cool bringing that out and seeing that show with these creators so they could talk about, why they love comics and why it, has probably saved them like they saved me. So
yeah, absolutely. I think we've had guests on too that you gotta pull words out of their mouth, but like I think it also helps too that I got these two guys by my side that help generate conversation.
Hey, I tried to prepare too. I think my nickname should be Preparation H because I really do. Look, I have a whole. I have notes here.
You should change that on your little saying there in your placard.
My new nickname. Preparation H.
How long did you take to write the joke, Gary?
It just came to me.
Seconds.
Right.
Just all the scratch outs of it right above the notes and everything.
But as you can see too, Brandon, we try to have a couple laughs here too. Try to keep the show very conversational, and but always, talking comics and stuff like that. So so we enjoy it.
See this? I even drew a little thumbnail of you because the guest.
Amazing. That's freaking awesome. I gotta start doing that again.
He's like a courtroom sketch artist, but for Indie Comics Relay.
It's funny you say that, Johnny, because one time I had I got called for jury duty, like my third time, something crazy like that. I don't know how many times you guys have been called for jury duty, but for my third time I got called for this like major, medical malpractice case in Lowell, Mass, actually. And this guy died under the care of 3 doctors. And I'm like, and I was picked to be like the alternate juror. I was like juror number 13. And I was like in school, college during that time. I'm like, is there any way I can not be picked for this, because I'm in school. School just started, like, and the judge is like, Harry, I kind of need you for this case. I'm like, all right, whatever. So, and it literally went on for a month. It was like the trial of the century, it's like all kinds of like, and they gave us these like notebooks, and I drew every juror that or every person that sat in the juror's box, or in the witness box, whatever. I drew everyone, and then like to the point where the other jurors in the group would say, hey, I can't remember that third, person that testified. I'm like, oh, I mean, this guy right here, and I was showing pictures. and then when I went back to school, after they ended up settling the case, the doctors like, ended up paying the woman, whatever. But when I went back to class, I'm like, sorry, I missed out all these classes, and I have this, jurors, notebook, and the guy gave me an A on it, like, it's great artwork, thanks. I'm like, so he graded my he graded my notebook, so that's cool.
That's so funny. Like the judge is like, look at that guy, he's very studious, he's taking notes. And Harry's just sketching everybody.
I was like,
oh, you mean motherfucking number 3 over here?
Right. I tried to be as like serious as possible because it's a very serious court case, So like the 3rd day or whatever, it was like a snowstorm. It's like it's during the fall time, So and the courtroom was like super like hot, So I didn't want to put my jacket on. The bailiff was saying goodnight to us at the end of the 1st or 3rd day, whatever. So I pulled my coat off the coat rack, whatever. And I'm like, I'm not gonna put it on now because it's a heavy leather jacket that I had on. And I'm like, I'll just put it on when I get to the door so I can shake the bailiff's hand and everything. So I'm like, all right. So I started putting my jacket on, and in my coat was still the wooden coat hanger, like from the closet. I'm like, crap, and I pull it out. I'm like, I'm not trying to steal this hanger, It's kind of was still in my jacket. Like, have a good night, Harry. I'm like, crap, I can't ever be like serious.
It's like a fucking Seinfeld episode or something.
Yeah,
classic. Another time, like I parked my on that same day, like when I pulled in that morning with a snowstorm. So I just kind of like pulled my car out of the garage, reversed, hit my mirror. My side mirror was like dangling. I parked it on the first, the side of the street. I ran in the courtroom like, whew. I'm like, and I put my coat away, and I sat down, and like the bailiff was like, Harry, where did you park? I'm like, right there, you can see my car. I was like, Harry, there's a snow ban, you can't park on the street. I'm like, so I had to put my coat back. The woman, the woman was crying. The woman whose husband died, was crying. I'm like, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. You're getting the coat. You're putting your scarf on. You put your mittens on. She's bawling her eyes out. Right. I'm sorry, man.
I'm sorry, man.
Sorry.
Yeah.
It's 100% a Seinfeld episode.
It really. My whole life is really.
Oh my God!
Oh, I love it. I love it. It wouldn't be an episode unless Harry actually has me dying laughing.
Yeah, there's usually a Harry tangent in every episode.
Yeah, I'm sorry. At least one.
I love it.
But anyways, what I was going to ask too, Brandon, my next thing was, how long have you been doing the Inspired Ink show now?
Actually, we launched it at the end of November, so really just
oh wow,
6 months
got a lot
or
of
so.
Videos,
yeah, pumping out like 2 a week and whatnot.
That's fantastic.
So are we actually?
Yeah, it's a lot of
we're
work, dude.
there.
It's crazy because like at the time before I switched over to full time with CWS, I was working full time at a grocery store at an Aldi, so I was doing that full time 40 hours a week, and then I'd be doing 2 to 4 interviews a week that are all about an hour or so long, and then on top of running the publishing imprint and trying to make my own comics during all that time while maintaining a relationship and having like time
all the
and
life
existence.
stuff.
So it's been a very, I think that's why like since Apollo, since the punk anthology came out, it's just been a whirlwind because that launched in May.
Man.
And then it's just been nonstop because we got to go to San Diego Comic-Con last year, which was a big event for us. And then they got to sponsor the anthology and gave us the CWS like variant cover. And then it just, we were prepping books. And then bam, it was just the end of the year. And now I'm already in, April going into Free Comic Book Day, which is wild,
I feel like, winter where everything's kind of shuts down, I still have a lot of work to do. Like,
Yeah.
I'm either
Mhm.
lettering someone's book or I'm working on my own stuff or, so I have no, there's something I can do every day, like
Same.
for comics, which is
Either
cool,
it's an overload, and it's what you were kind of saying at the beginning of the show. You just like don't know, like, where do I start? There's so much to do. Like I could turn any direction, and I have
Yeah.
a pile in front of me from something.
Sometimes it keeps me up at night because I'm like trying, okay, tomorrow I got to do this,
Yep.
this, and this.
Mhm.
It's like an
Yep.
anxiety
Hands
thing
down.
almost.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
I feel you.
There's never not something I actually need to be doing. Unfortunately, like literally, there's never not.
Johnny's like
so-
at every convention too, and like
So anytime I'm not doing something, I feel immediately guilty.
Yeah, dude, to the point where like if I try to, sometimes I do need to shut down and just like play video games for a bit. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
you
Just, like,
have to. You
but,
gotta,
like-
you gotta decompress a little bit.
Yeah, but it takes a lot. Like I feel guilty while I'm doing that, and it just hurts. Where I'm like, I could be drawing, I could be fixing something. There's a million things,
Yeah.
but like
Well,
hanging
now
out with my
that I'm-
girlfriend and watching TV is the only time I'm like, just put away your phone. I need
Yeah,
to be
yeah,
here.
exactly.
I need
Be
to
in the
present.
moment kind of thing.
Yeah,
The like I'm kind of like you, Brandon, where I'm mostly working in the comic industry. Like I work 2 days at a comic shop, like for like supplemental income for my bills. But I also, I letter for money, and then I'm trying to get this show monetized at some point, so we get some cash coming in here, which is close. We're almost at 1,000 sub.
it's a
which is
lot.
great.
It's a lot of work, dude.
Takes a
Like,
while,
I've
man. It
discovered-
does.
Yeah.
It's a grind, and I think YouTube has it figured out where it's like it takes this long for a reason because they want to weed out the people that are serious about it and the people
Well,
that aren't.
so many people started, projects and podcasts over COVID, and only so many people, remained after that.
Mhm.
A lot of
Yep.
friends had only made it to episode 5 or 10, and Apollo, when we kind of just stopped because we got too busy,
Yeah.
but we had hit like 150 or something episodes.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, we were
that's
very
still great for a podcast.
Yeah, we had a lot of content out, a whole bunch of stuff. And then we even I originally started doing the live show on there as well. So there's live content there,
Yeah.
on top of it. So it's like, to go that far and to get that, high up, it does take a lot of effort, but you're right. It's for a reason, because they're just not going to give away money for free,
Yeah, right. Exactly. And they want to weed out the people that want to be professional YouTubers versus the people that are just doing it for recreation, So I get it, I get it. It's like anything, you got to be in the trenches for a while before you're in the front lines,
Very true.
So, but no, that's awesome. And you guys only been doing it 6 months. You're on your way. You got a decent like sub count, for 6 months.
Well, they had a channel before I joined up, and we've really gotten like 300 subscribers in the last like 6 months, which is wild.
That's great.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's climbing like crazy. I've never been part of something that's like accelerated so fast before. Or
That's great. Hopefully we'll get you a few more subs tonight, on the show. I put the link in the chat for the YouTube channel, everybody, if you want to check it out. Help Comix Wellspring. If you're a creator, you know that name. So, and Brandon is part of the team, and he's also interviewing creators and finding some really good topics on there, So it's really good.
It's fun. Those topics just come out of conversations. You know what I mean? It's crazy what you discover about someone once you just start letting them open up and roll out. You know what I mean? And it's a lot of fun doing that. And that's why I think our topics are so diverse across the board. They're very, personal to each person that comes onto the show.
Yeah, that's great. And finding that angle too,
Mhm.
The other thing you guys do well. I'm sorry, Johnny. Let me just.
I was just saying, one of the common denominators is, like you said before, it's like there's the challenges of working in the creative process. We all kind of face that, and it's kind of, sometimes it's unspoken. Sometimes it's like, oh, it's like, yeah, I run into that, or I face that issue. It's like that, and those are things that kind of bond us all together.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and it's kind of cool coming from someone like me who's like, stuff has sucked, and then I had to figure it out. So I know where it's like what it feels like to just want to give up, and then the light at the end of the tunnel opens, and you don't ever expect it once it does.
Oh,
you gotta stay persistent. Like you gotta really love this industry to be part of it, I think,
Yeah.
So, are there any upcoming promotions that you are excited about, or that you are promoting for people?
like interviews.
Yeah, no. I mean, like for their projects or whatever. They're
Oh yeah, actually, we got his Kickstarter here, which
Oh,
I was
okay.
gonna kind of transition to.
Yeah, let's
See
pull
if
it
we
up.
talk about. It's a new one for Apollo City Comics. It's happening right
Mhm.
now, actually.
Yeah, it's really awesome. We're doing so we Ben and Eric, these guys that were working on a book, they ran a publication company called B Comics, and they were part of our CyberSync anthology, and they'd been putting out this book called Outer Space. And I
Okay.
really love these two guys. And Jackie, she does the art for them. She's amazing. She's astonishing. And so we've known them for a couple months. And once I started the publishing imprint, we would just start talking more. Eric, I'm vegan and Eric's vegan, so we always trade recipes and show each other food and whatnot. And it's like we became like closer friends because of that. And then me and Ben really connect over a lot of things that we just have, similarities and like taste of like shows and movies and stuff.
Oh,
And we're always
cool.
around just connecting, and we've always stayed in connection. And we're all like avid, like, like stoners that always like making those Kevin Smith like jokes and movies and like things like that.
Yeah.
So we kind of just started talking one day, and I was like, what if you guys, while you're doing issue 2, we just bring you over to Apollo? Like, you get the Apollo megaphone, we get to work together a whole lot more. And they were all for it. So we started putting together this is actually an Animal Man homage. If there, I
Oh,
forget which
nice.
cover, but it's a homage to an Animal Man.
Another great
Animal Man book.
Vertigo book from
Mhm.
back in the day.
Another thing that connected us was Vertigo Comics and stuff like that. So they've been working on this amazing stoner sci-fi book. And it's really influenced by like movies
Art
like
is nice,
Stripe and stuff.
honestly. Like
Dude,
the art
yeah,
is really good.
Jackie's killing it, and she just gets better with every single thing she's done. She's one of those artists that you see her in issue 1, and you're gonna just see her transform from book to book. CyberSync, when that anthology is out, where people could pick it up, their submission in that was one of those eye-catching things in the world. And I didn't even know. I never look at who sends the submission. I always look at the work first to not be biased. And once I realized it was them and Jackie, I was like, oh man, I need to talk to them more. Max Flowers did this amazing
Oh,
EC
I love
Comics
that.
homage.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
But it's
great.
fun because we got to do just like we have like a whole stoner line of comics coming out of Apollo as well, which I have a book called The High Adventures of Weed Wizard and Bong Boy that'll be coming out very soon too. And it's just like we
Love it.
get to have the most fun with these stories, and they're doing another book with us called Too High to Die, which is like Die Hard meets Home Alone, and it's like really like big pharma versus homegrown pharma and
Oh,
stuff like
man.
that.
Love that.
It's the craziest stuff ever. So
Mhm.
like just helping them support this book is going to help pay Jackie to finish drawing it. And we hit funding that we're hitting, just to get the book printed and get some supplies and whatnot. But the further we go, the further Jackie could work on the book and get it done, and maybe put that towards issue 3 as well, and just do some cool stuff. But it's been interesting crowdfunding. This is our 5th one. We've been working with and whatnot, and it's crazy because we're learning a whole lot. And I think the game of crowdfunding is going to change a lot in the next year or so. I'm kind of curious where it's going to go. This has actually been our slowest campaign for some reason, and I don't know if it's because of it's a very niche. Animal Man 34, our boy Ben right there, one of
Yeah,
the creators.
nice.
This campaign's really interesting because I'm looking at other campaigns around us. Jade Louder, who's doing It's a Horror Show. If you guys want to look that one up too, that's a great person to shout out real fast. Jade Louder, who's doing It's a Horror Show. I'm actually technically part of that book because I am getting killed inside of that book.
Oh no.
Oh,
no.
cool.
Yeah.
Nice little cameo action there.
Yeah, exactly, dude. And it is one of the coolest things. Maybe I could drop a
I just
link.
want to see this. There it is. That's the homage cover.
Awesome.
Now, I was a
dude.
fan of Manimal. I mean, does anything relate to this?
Same idea, Harry. Same idea.
And what was the other one?
Known Comics. Somebody from there's been on the show before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They sound really familiar. What was the other one, Brandon?
I just dropped a link in your
Oh, you did? Okay,
private chat.
perfect.
Yeah. LKC is a big basically indie publishing house. And Mark Bernal runs it, and he's the one he's been my mentor and my best friend through all of my comic book making process, and he's really why we found a lot of success ourselves. But this is our friend Jade. Dude, this book, It's a Horror Show, The Breakup, not only phenomenal art, but he's almost done getting funded as well.
Oh man, the art reminds me of speaking of Vertigo, like Ted McKeever, like a little bit in that vein. You know, like
Oh,
you ever read any of his
yeah.
early Vertigo stuff?
Dude, for sure. Oh
Yeah, isn't it?
man.
It's just the way these characters are drawn. That's what it reminds me of, big time.
Mhm.
Dude, that's crazy. I never thought about that. That's a really big, like,
Just like this
mind-blowing.
girl's hair, like just that is so McKeever right there. You know?
It
Dude,
definitely has that like early '90s indie vibe.
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
Jade's phenomenal. And this book is a lot of fun. I'm super happy I got to read it before it came out, and I just can't believe that I get to be like drawn into a book and like killed essentially. You know
That's
what I mean?
cool. I like that a lot.
People
I like
love
when they
that
when
tier,
they,
like for campaigns. People love tiers like that, where like illustrate me into the book. You know.
yeah, I've done that a few on my on some of my campaigns. It's been always successful. You know.
Jade has that option, and we have that in Outer Space as well. And so there's some really cool. We try to make our tiers as flavorful as possible. Like we have poster options, we have T-shirt options, we have like the Wham stand option as always, and all sorts of cool stuff. And then another quick shout out, our friend Billy Diamond Jr. Is doing a book called Munjin Man. I dropped a link here real fast as well.
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
want to pull that
I
up,
just want to show you this, but that's like a Ted McKeever page.
Man, dude, for real.
Doesn't that remind you of
Awesome.
that dude's art?
Totally.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
sick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so like it's
And
so
Jade's
like
awesome. He's a teacher. He has so many cool. He's running an anthology that has open submissions right now too. If you check out his Instagram.
all right. Let me check out the link for this one as well. Yeah, we'll throw it up here as well and check it out.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Our friend Billy's just really close to getting funded. He only has a few days left.
Oh
Real
wow, yeah, he's
simple
really
tiers.
close.
Yeah, his book is like $15. It's a 148 page story, and
For
I just think
$15?
yeah,
Wow, he's
wow.
like kind of underselling himself there a little bit.
Yeah,
I
it's
bet
That's a
awesome.
bargain. That's a bargain
That
for that
is a
price.
bargain.
Yeah, man, it's some cool stuff.
Oh, look at that! It's like great.
That's awesome art.
Yeah, it
Holy
is.
crap.
Wow.
Yeah, I feel like
look
the
at that.
algorithm on Kickstarter has been real wild lately because all these books are barely getting traction, and I'm just like, man, this is some great
Well,
stuff.
Johnny was saying too. It's like a lot of it's by how much you back, and wasn't it Johnny? What was the thing you figured out?
What do you mean?
Like like Kickstarter, like there's like a rhythm to it, right? There's like
Oh yeah, I believe there's a certain level of like how much you feed into it versus how much is reverberated back to you
Yeah,
in terms of like input versus output. You know what I mean? And
I
I
can see
think
that.
there's a certain, and there's probably checks and balances, but I also think there's a certain level of, just the matter of like, okay, you interact with all these certain specific campaigns. And I think whatever back end system serves up like-minded things,
Mhm.
right? So it kind of puts you in touch with similar things as well,
That makes
This is the-
sense.
this would
Yeah.
be the kind of thing, like, since there's all three campaigns, these, it would probably be like good with like a newsletter kind of thing where you're like, hey, check out these three campaigns, that are running alongside ours or whatever, like that's one way that you could like kind of market each other, I guess, and
or come on a show like Indie Comics Relay.
yeah, exactly. That too.
We all do the newsletter stuff and
Oh, you
things
do?
like
Okay.
that. And it's one of those things, well, like at least, on Kickstarter and whatnot, we all try to hit some sort of newsletter. But what I'm trying to do with Comix Wellspring is exactly that. Like, I just posted a video on the Instagram that went on our social media and a newsletter to like, tag us whenever you guys are running campaigns. Like now that I'm the one running social media, if you tag us in a post, I will share it like on our page so people can
cool.
get that reach. Like
Yeah.
if you have a video showcasing your book and the quality and how happy you are getting it, make us a collaborator, when you're posting it up, and I'll accept it. If it's showing the
Okay.
quality of the book,
That's good to know, because
I want to bring more community aspect to us because it's
Yeah.
all about that. And I think, that mindset that we have is the same mindset CWS has. And I think I'm trying to find a way to bring it out because it looks like they haven't had the ability to really do that before.
Yeah, and then another thing I was gonna say to you, Brandon, too, if you make like if you and as an Inspired Ink and if Comix Wellspring, if you guys got like 30-second like video spots, like ads for your stuff, send them our way. I'll put them on the ends, because not only do we do the live stream, but we could put it, I do a couple videos during the week and I add ads to the end of them and stuff. And, we're always looking for 30-second spots to help,
cool.
Fill
Yeah.
in. Yeah.
throw
We're actually
awareness
doing a
out
bunch
there,
of new.
So,
We're filming a bunch of new ads that are shorter.
yeah,
and
send them my
easier to
way.
grasp
I'll
too,
add them
yeah.
to our stuff. I mean, especially like we're endorsing it anyways. Me and Johnny,
Right.
dude, Comix
We talk
Wellspring
all the
comes up
time.
all the time in
Dude.
our live streams.
All the
So
time.
so yeah,
That's
I'd
exciting.
love.
Yeah,
I would not be opposed to throwing some of the ads on our videos. So
and it's cool because it's just, it's one of those things where we could go about it where it's like, oh, it's promotional and it's all this type of stuff. But really, it's like, it's kind of the cool thing to promote when it's like here to help everyone make their art come to life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
It's
that's the
less.
exciting part.
Yeah, sorry, Brandon. I didn't mean to step on you, but I'm gonna say it's less promoting it and more of like cluing you in, like, hey, these guys do a good job. Like,
Yeah.
you put, like I like these guys. You put your faith in their work. That kind of thing. It's more a referral than a promotion, really.
There you go. Yeah, it's one of those things. Like, and we could all back it up. And me being a customer first, and then working with them second. Again, just backing it up at that certain extent. And I really just want to, like, in this role, see where we could take CWS, and like really where we could like elevate the community aspect. And there's a bunch of ideas we have going down the pipeline from like, like there really isn't a Wizard magazine and a resource for creators. What if we made one?
A good one, like,
and
there's no. I don't find there's a lot of really good online websites anymore either.
No. So we're working on an aspect to be a great resource for people, from conventions to educational stuff to like just relatable things.
Love it.
Heavy metal is bankrupt. I don't see heavy metal coming back. And heavy metal is what got me into a lot of comics. That movie really influenced me as a kid.
So, sorry, Brandon. I was just gonna say, I was just gonna say, I actually see some value, because you mentioned Wizard magazine, right? Wizard magazine did two things: kept you up to date on comic books, and also told you the value of those books, right? There's tons of indie books out there, and they're just kind of unvalued. Not that they're not good, they just don't have an actual collectible value.
And who determined that? Like, who is the person
who determined that? Exactly. And who's to say that there isn't a space to set that now? Right. So like, for people who all these great campaigns that have run all these exclusive books, who's to say that there isn't an evaluation on it, an actual dollar amount based upon how much the campaign made? And then that can now be documented so that, when you're going through your comics in 5 years and you pull out a book that you read, you loved, but you stored away, you can actually now look at what's the collectible value of this book.
Yeah.
Probably Gene Simmons. I said all that.
Gene Simmons from Kiss.
Right. That guy.
Manipulating the comic book market all these years. It's all been a giant scam.
It all comes back to merchandising.
Yep.
It's not a bad
Baseball's
idea,
the flamethrower.
Yeah,
and also like just finding a way to like bring that back of that excitement of like having a magazine that like had everything you wanted in it, you know what I mean, that like showed you new stuff that you didn't know was around. And like heavy metal, where's another anthology that's like widely distributed that gave a flavor and variety like that? Like heavy metal like died out for a bit, and then Grant Morrison took it over, and then I was hyped for a bit because Grant Morrison took it over, and then he left, and then after that it just kind of crumbled away and collapsed. And like we have that book Detached Tales, which is typically a con exclusive, but we're looking at making a way to make it more of an anthology series where we could really distribute stuff like that. And
that'd be great.
The way we could do fulfillment and distribution in general, we're operating on bigger levels now to where some of these things are becoming feasible. And the more we can do, the better it is for everybody else, because our whole goal is like with the creator in mind. How do we push your sales? How do we get you better numbers on your Kickstarter? It's a win-win thing. Like, not only are you printing more with us, but like you guys are getting more attention drawn to your books. You guys are building more of an audience by working with us. And that's why with like Inspired Ink and the way we're going to be like distributing and like highlighting creators, crowdfunding, it's like all you got to do is print with us. That's it. And you have a plethora, you have a community, you have resources, you have opportunities. Like, we're starting a live drawing show, so if you don't want to be interviewed, you could come over and draw. All sorts of stuff.
There we go. Sketchy Guy Nevada, thanks for joining us. He said,
Yeah,
where do I sign up?
Yeah.
Dude, right. I know. It's one of the things. I mean, just keep an eye out on all the CW
following
lists.
Comix Wellspring on Twitter. You said you took over all their social media.
Yeah.
So start following Comix Wellspring everywhere. Instagram. What do you guys have? Instagram, Twitter,
Facebook. I just made a TikTok that'll be going live. I think tomorrow. We're gonna have there's actually, if you search for it, it's there, but we haven't announced it yet, so I guess I'll kind of announce it. We're opening up a Reddit thread. That way we can directly talk to people and take Q and A's and like all sorts of stuff. Q and A's. I don't know what I was going. I was thinking talking heads or something.
You're gonna open up a TikTok tomorrow. It's gonna get banned on Friday.
Right? Yeah. Right.
Are they banning it? Is it really going?
I don't know. I always see that like on news and stuff. You know.
We'll find out.
But like, finding ways to like, shoot me a message on Instagram or anywhere.
Yeah, there you go.
We'll send you the form and get you on the wait list and whatnot too. And that's the cool part. You know what I mean? Like the amount of people that like have wanted to be part of Inspired Ink and are excited for this live drawing show. It's like, dude, we're building a community. We're a business for sure, but like, the community is important, and like the more success everybody else has in indie comics, the more conventions we take over, like, and conventions like IC3 happen, and what Dan Mendoza is doing with like his convention that he's going to be bringing out, all sorts of this cool stuff, and it's all comic book focused. We're finding success in ourselves.
I love it,
and that's what we want to continue to grow.
And that's what we need too. Like we need to make it exciting to read comics again, because we're fighting everything, like streaming, video games, movies, cartoons,
and just the
everything.
Same like recycled like Civil War Part 8, and then like
right
Crisis, like, and all this type of stuff. And it's like, all right, like I'm a big Marvel DC fan for sure, hands down, always have been. I read Thor and Hulk all the time still, but like, guys, it's hard when you're just like, man, I'm not reading like a fraction of what you guys are putting out, because I know what it is already. I look at it and I can tell what that story is about. I love indie comics.
It's recycled
100%. And you look at indie comics and you're like, I'm interested.
I just saw Marvel's doing this event called Blood Hunt. Like, didn't DC just do like a big vampire thing? It's like, come on, guys, you gotta find something else. Like,
even the new rollout for like the revamped X-Men completely did nothing for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like,
and I mean, why? Why is this not exciting? Like, I want to be excited about this.
Yeah, like I haven't been excited about any Avengers comic in forever. I don't know.
Like, you want to have that, like when Hickman did it. Like there was an excitement there. People were like, wow, this feels new and fresh. And
the only actually Avengers comic I was excited about was that Avengers Twilight. I thought that was really good.
Oh, that sounded cool. That sounded
great.
Sure.
Great.
But again, like, okay, it's Chip Zdarsky, but like, what Chip Zdarsky book am I not like excited about?
Right.
Revamped. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, no, anything Chip Zdarsky touches is great.
Yeah.
Especially his indie stuff. New Burn is fantastic.
Oh, New Burn's so cool. Yeah.
So good. That. Such a good book. But yeah, no, I love this. And anything we can do to help you guys, please reach out, because we're here to help the community as well, besides promoting ourselves. That's like the least thing that we do on this show, and we have to have a guest on and talk about you, for
but it's like
minutes,
that's one of those things, like, where's the resource that tells people what podcasts support indie comics? Like,
Right.
where
There
is
isn't
that?
any.
You know,
Right.
why? But we're gonna do that. Like, this is all stuff that like Alex and I have been talking about and working on, and have a
Fantastic.
million Google Docs, and it's what drives my girlfriend crazy because I'm working more than I ever have been. Like, you know, all sorts of stuff. But it's
You
like,
found the passion, though. You found your passion, you know?
yeah, and it's
So I
fun.
love it.
I mean,
But
it's super cool.
like you
It's not
said,
a
now
job.
you could say I do
fun.
comics full time. Like that's
Yeah, that's cool.
awesome. That
Yeah.
must feel good in and of itself, you
Yeah.
know.
It's one of those things where, you know, when you want to accept something and be real proud, but you're like kind of like, oh, I don't want to be like egotistical, but you're just like, this is fucking cool, though, man. This is like really rad. I'm really excited.
Hell
Yeah.
yeah.
No, there's a point where you can pat yourself on the back, and
For
if
sure.
not, we're here to do
It's
it
because
for
it
you,
doesn't
so-
like
Yeah,
feel
take
like
the wins
work.
when you can
You know?
get them. This is like you said, comics is hard. So take the wins where you can get
yeah,
them. You know?
take the W.
And I like spent like today like figuring out how to plan like 3 anthologies, and I was like going crazy over a design program and figuring it out, and you know, lining up all this shit, and then I was like, but this is my fucking job though. That's cool. All right, I can't
Yeah.
complain. Like,
Do
Well-
comics full
well-
time? That is
well-
the dream. Of course
Well
it is.
put,
Everybody's
sketchy.
trying to get there, you know, and
Yeah,
there's
man.
every person's path is different. That's the
100%.
thing, you know. So
mhm.
awesome. But you know what? We've been talking literally for an hour and 45 minutes, which
It
it doesn't
flies right
seem like
by.
that. It
I was
flew by.
telling my girlfriend, I was like, man, we're gonna start at 9. I go to bed at 9:30 typically. I'm gonna tell them I'm tired. It'll be an hour max. And you guys
Oh, you
have
know
me.
what? I've seen your
I love
videos.
hearing that. Yeah, I love hearing that. We, you know,
I
people
saw your
have such
page.
a good time. They forget the time, which I love hearing that. Go
Your
ahead,
your
Harry.
your Brandon's page of videos of all the interviews you've done. You pretty much
Mhm.
you're pretty good at staying within the hour of like interviews.
Oh, I try to. I've
that's
really
really-
learned how to master that, like
No, it's you can tell.
whipping the conversation around and
Yeah.
halting it.
We
Yep.
couldn't do less than an hour to save our lives.
Yeah,
True. Yeah. Same. We would have lost, and we didn't even touch on like half the things, which is exciting. I do
know.
a wild amount of things. Like I said, that have all happened within the last year. So it's like this build up, and then just this explosion. And once it happened, I didn't want to let go, and it's just been really fierce, and just not letting any opportunities slip by, and just, you know,
No, it's
putting in the
good.
time and being good to people. You know what I mean? It's a
Mhm.
big part of it. Is
That's
just like
key.
trying to be true, because if the way you see me on a show or when I host a show is going to be the same way you see me when you see me at a convention or when I'm just out having lunch or whatever. Like, I'm not a different persona in every different way, and I think that's what's really helped the success of both Apollo and like CWS and Inspired Ink, is that like I'm not a persona. I'm literally just this person. And that's what's exciting, is that you're getting
Yeah,
this
no.
really cool, raw, organic thing, and we're not going to be, there's no manipulation behind it. And if I fuck up, then that's going to suck. But, you know, like, but it's the cool part. You don't got to worry about me being fake or dishonest in that sense.
Yeah,
Well,
no,
like I
and-
said, ego, right? There's not an
Yeah.
ego baked into this. You're just you, and you're doing your
Mhm.
thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Either
yeah,
you're on
and
board or
same
you're
with
not.
me- Same with me
Exactly.
and Johnny. What you see
Mhm.
here is what you get with us in person. You know, if you're at a
Yeah.
convention. So, yeah, no, I love that, and it comes through though. Actually, I think people see that, you know, when you're talking and everything. You know,
Mhm.
but yeah, I know we barely touched on everything, but yeah, that just
I
gives me
think
an
we just
excuse
need to
come
do a
back
part
again,
2
you know?
episode at some point in the future, right?
Honestly, yeah. Honestly, yeah. More than up for it. This has been an amazing night, guys. I've had a
Yeah,
total
it's
blast.
been a lot of fun, Brandon. So yeah, so as we start to wrap up here, anything else that you want to shout out? Like, do you want to shout out the Comix Wellspring social media accounts?
Yeah,
Anything
you know,
like that?
check out all of Comix Wellspring social media, from Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. TikTok is launching. You can find the page and follow it. Reddit is up there. You can find the page and follow it. Even their LinkedIn is now spruced up a little bit, so hit us up there as well.
Nice.
And hit up our YouTube page, where we have so much content coming out. All these new shorts and clips, and new episodes twice a week, going back on the ball again. We were kind of absent for about 2.5 weeks there, but we got a bunch of new content in, and we're working on that. And then every Thursday night, starting May 2nd, we're going to start a new show. Me and Max Flowers are doing Spilled Ink, a live drawing show where we're going to bring guests on, and we're going to talk about craft and techniques and, you know, drawing, all sorts of stuff. And it's just going to go on every Thursday as long as we can, from about 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern time. I don't know what the Pacific that is at all.
Uh,
5, I guess.
Yeah, 5 or
4 or
something.
something like that. Yeah. But it's 6 Eastern starting. But I'm super excited about that to get back into it. And I'm just hyped to be inspiring people and giving them a voice. And I'm hyped to be making my own comics. That's like the whole point of all of this. This is where it all started. I just wanted to make a damn comic.
Yeah.
And now it's all of this. Which is rad. I can't be happier doing any of it. So thank you. But check out Apollo City Comics as well. Instagram's the main place I'm at. If you want to check out any of our work, check out Lesser Known Comics. We're always promoting other comic book people, so check out anyone we promote. Oh, and then Outer Space. I should have said that. Yeah. It's been a long day. But yeah, our current Kickstarter is Outer Space. You could actually get both issues. We rebranded issue 1. We're funding issue 2 to get it drawn and made right now. It's this phenomenal sci-fi stoner series that you guys would just absolutely love. It's so witty, and if you love movies like Striped and stuff like that, you're gonna love this like fucking book. It's so great. They poured their heart into it, and all sorts of tiers ranging from like I think like $5-10 all the way to 420. So
yeah, some of the prices there were really, really reasonable. Like more reasonable than I usually see, which is.
And we always give away bonus and goodies. Like everyone who backed the punk campaign got these like free prints. Everyone who backed CyberSync got these prints, and then whoever did Shadows got this middle Shadow poster. And then we're giving away patches and all sorts of stuff. So you're not just getting a comic; you are getting like a bundle, no matter what you get.
Fantastic. I love it.
That's cool. What a bargain.
Harry, Johnny, anything you guys want to shout out this week before
I guess I gotta start working my Preparation H logo and do my other projects that I'm working on. So I got a form to do.
Expect your name to be Preparation H next week on your
like
you need a real flashy tag of some sort.
Yeah, right.
Something.
That's awesome. How about you, Johnny?
Well, so I'm going to be at C2E2 this coming week. So
hit up the Heroic Awards. Dude,
what's that?
We hit up the Heroic Awards while you're at C2E2. If you see the Heroic Awards, it's this new indie comics award that's like they just started up this year, C2E2. The award ceremony, I believe, is like Saturday night. But look into it while you're there. And if you see this awesome drawing of a superhero for the Heroic Awards, this guy, Bob Little, did the art for it. We hired him to do it, and it looks phenomenal. So keep an eye on, Heroic Awards.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll keep an eye out for that.
Yeah.
Johnny, maybe you can do a little filming with your phone while you're there.
Like
a short video for us or something.
If you guys are looking for people to bring on, those winners of the Heroic Awards would be a good little selection for you guys as well.
Oh, yeah, that's actually that. I'll have to do a little reconnaissance while I'm there. To see if I can make some connections there to come onto the show. I'm already worried about people coming up to me who've been on the show and me not remembering them. That's like my biggest anxiety right now.
Yeah.
You're like, oh yeah, what show is that? Oh, okay. All right.
I think people understand, Johnny, because I mean we host so many people that I forget all the time. Sometimes I'll recognize the face, but it takes me a while sometimes to remember
names. I'm horrific.
Yeah, I'm
just
terrible.
bad at
I'm
names.
gonna meet you like 15 times before I remember the name. And it's even worse as I get older. It's like
I remember the book though, because it's like, like you said, Bigfoot knows karate. Like that makes me remember Dan. Or like Worthy Chaos always makes you remember Carissa Grant,
Yeah. One last question before we close out though, Brandon. Are you is CWS sending you to any shows this year?
A lot of that's like up in the air because of some of the shifts, but I was planning on C2E2, but it was I just moved myself at the beginning of this month, so I couldn't make that. But I'm looking to go to HeroCon in Charlotte, North Carolina. I believe that's in June. Never been there before.
It's a good good comic show. I've been there.
I'm excited. That's what I've heard.
Vended there once, and it was.
I might be going this year.
Oh, cool.
Are you going,
yeah, I might be going. So my buddy who I normally split a table with at C2E2 hit me up on Twitter, and I haven't got a chance to reply to him yet, but he goes, I got a table for Heroes Con. So I'm pretty sure he's going to ask if I want to split. So I don't know. We'll see.
Nice. Dude,
hit
me up.
Brandon, you should see if they'll send you to Terrificon sometime. That's a nice comic show.
I might even be tabling at Terrificon.
Oh,
no,
I
really?
might be joining a friend on that too.
Oh, let us
so-
know, because me and Johnny might. Well,
I'm
Johnny's
definitely going to be there. Yeah.
I'm a 50-50, but if I know you're going, maybe I'll even just go down for the day or something, you know?
Yeah, dude, that'd be sick. I would love to. I'm really excited to check that out. I've never been to any of these cons. I've only been to Baltimore. So I'm excited for that. And Baltimore for sure, probably be going to. Hopefully, small
We
press.
got to get to
And-
Baltimore sometime, Johnny.
That's a cool one.
Yeah,
I
for
hear
sure.
it's a
Are
great.
you coming back to San Diego?
Not this year. It falls on some stuff. I'm actually Neil Gaiman is doing this Washington D.C. thing on the 20th, and so
cool.
and then I'm seeing Blink-182 on the 27th.
Oh,
So
nice.
it falls
Cool.
on those like that range where I'm like, damn, I'm not going this year.
Yeah.
But it's cool with all the shifts that have happened this year. San Diego is one of those giant extravaganza ones. Maybe New York. I'm really hoping for New York.
New
Nice.
York, New
Yeah.
York should be fun. But well, the only shout out I actually really wanted to make was for another campaign that's running from a friend of the show, George O'Connor. There's 4 days left for Vampire on Mars #1.
Okay.
Check that out. He sent me a preview copy. I haven't been able to check out yet, but I'm thinking that's going to be my airport reading.
Nice.
So yeah, so I can't wait
Like
to
the
read
title.
that. Now I'm very curious to see what that book's about. So I'm going to check that out. And I also just wanted to take Brandon, just a minute to take, thank you, Brandon, for coming on the show. Like, I know you have we all have busy schedules, and trying to navigate that can be tough. So we really greatly appreciate you coming on, sharing, your work with us, Comix Wellspring with us, and looking forward to seeing Comix Wellspring grow.
Thanks,
Yeah.
man. I really appreciate
Right.
coming on here. Really, it's super cool. Would love to do it again sometime. Hands down.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's keep in touch. And I want to thank you as well. Thank you for joining us. And I'm a fan. I've watched some of the Inspired Ink, so I like it.
Thank you.
So but yeah, no, and everybody check out Comix Wellspring. They're doing some awesome things. And if you need a printer, if you're making comics, they are the ones you want to hit. They do a great job, and they care about what they're doing, so that's the key. And they care about the indie community, much in the same way Global Comics cares about the indie community.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
You want to
Big
support
time.
guys like this and make these businesses succeed, so so check that out. But we'll be back Wednesday night. We got a bonus episode this week. We got Hades from ASAP Imagination joining us Wednesday night. Johnny will not be with us, or Johnny, you're not sure, right? Is it like you might be getting on
I'm
the
like
plane?
90%. So I'll tell you after the show, but I'm like 80 to 90% sure I probably won't be able to make it.
Okay. We have Tony James in the wings that might step in to co-host with us. And
Suitable
Harry will be with
replacement.
me. And then so we'll have 3 guys anyways. And then Hades is great. So we'll find out about their Kickstarter. And then we're off Monday, thank God. We've been doing too many shows
right.
lately.
Sure that.
And then and then we'll be back the following week. But so and if you're out there and you like the show, please consider subbing to the show. It helps the channel grow, reaching more indie creators and more indie fans. So definitely help us out there. And most importantly, everybody, read some comics. All right.
Yep.
Have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you Wednesday night. Good night, everybody.
Yep. Good night.
Good night.